You're listening to the Legion of Reason.
I didn't write an intro for this one, so I'm just gonna wing it. Episode 186. Welcome to the Legion of Reason diversion, and I'm yours truly, the Supreme Irreverend Doctor Randy Tyson, joined by my usual co-hosts, Christine and Twyla, and we are going to talk a little bit later about the big orange elephant in the room with the bad hair, and how we got it so wrong. But first,
I didn't get it wrong. I said, he's rhetorically persuasive. I thought there was a chance.
No, you didn't say he would. You didn't say he would.
I said I hoped he wouldn't, but I thought there was a chance.
Yeah.
But anyways, there's a couple of stories we want to get to first, and the first story is something that came on my radar on Friday. I was driving up to Edmonton, and it was about a school in BC that was going to have what's called a smudging ceremony, and students in a public school taking part. And a smudging ceremony, I've got this for all those people, including myself, including me, who didn't know what the heck a smudging ceremony is. And I went to a website called, this is just awful, powwowpower.com.
Oh.
Way to keep those, keep propagating those stereotypes.
I don't know. They have powers. Powers are kind of like reunions and parties, and that's what they're called.
Yeah, that's what they're called. Anyway, so a smudging ceremony is a custom of Native American and other indigenous cultures. For centuries, many cultures have used smudging as a way to create a cleansing smoke bath that is used to purify the body, aura, energy, ceremonial/ritual space, or does that mean safe space, or any other space and personal articles. Smudging is performed to remove negative energy as well as for centering and healing. What the heck is centering? Our bodies and environments are not only physical, but vibrate with invisible silent energy. Oh, goodness. Smudging calls on the spirits of sacred plants to drive away negative energies and restore balance. Plants such as tobacco, sage, cedar, sweetgrass, juniper, lavender, and copal are burned, and the smoke is directed with a single feather or fan made of several feathers. Sage is said to purify and drive out negative... Okay, enough of that. So now we go from that to the National Post, and in this story it's called BC Mother Asks Court to Keep Aboriginal Cleansing Ceremony Out of Public Schools. So a BC mother is asking a court to intervene in her freedom of religion complaint against her children's school after an in-class Aboriginal ceremony to cleanse their spirits and classroom to ensure only good things will happen. Sounds like The Secret, if you ask me. The cleansing ceremony at John Howitt Elementary School in Port Alberni came at the start of the 2015 school year. And Candace Servatius, I hope I'm not butchering the name, whose two children attended the school, is concerned with the religious nature of the event that would violate provincial legislation, she says, in documents filed in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. And it goes on, she's being represented by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms and represented directly by John Carpe, who's a Calgary lawyer. He's championing her case, and he is on record as saying that the school violated Servatius' rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and also violated the BC School Act, which says in it, no religious dogma or creed is to be taught in a school. So what do you think? Do you think this constitutes teaching a religious dogma or creed?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And... well, I guess I saw another quote in, The Guardian, where the mother says she was led to believe by adults who are in a position of trust that her own religious beliefs were unworthy of respect. The court documents said that, leaving the child suffering anxiety, shame, and confusion. So that's really crappy.
Well, and they said that, where is it now? Basically, it was... They was frowned on if they were asking to leave. They were essentially not allowed to leave. Mm-hmm. And they didn't get the parents' permission beforehand either.
And then another article I read, where is it now? They were basically trying to make the claim that it's not a religion, it's their culture, it's their way of life and that kind of thing, right? It reminds me of when Christians say it's a philosophy and not a religion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's this.
It's a ceremony.
Packaging it as something that it obviously isn't. Of course, there's a religious aspect to this. I mean, to deny that is, just because it doesn't necessarily resemble the Abrahamic religions doesn't mean it's not religious.
Yeah. And Twyla, ceremonies can be secular too, like a wedding or something like that. That's still a ceremony. So it's the fact of it being a religious ceremony.
You would have to not be able, you can't really perform marriages and stuff at schools. So.
No, but ceremony can be, I don't know, every year on your birthday you sing, I don't know, the Beatles or something, right?
Yeah, and then not making
or tradition.
and then not telling people that they have to participate or you're going to be shunned as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, they seem to have broken a few things that should maybe be rules now.
Absolutely,
that's why.
Yeah. Well, there's supposed to be some part of the curriculum that promotes as part of the tribunal, right?
Reconciliation. Are you talking about reconciliation?
Yeah. And so, part of the curriculum is supposed to, and, like the point you made, Randy, was you can still teach about it without actually, participate. There's a difference between teaching it and making students participate in it.
And
that's more like
go ahead.
That's promoting a religion, not just, objectively teaching it.
Yeah, you could teach this kind of thing. This is what First Nations peoples do. This is what it means to them in an objective fashion. But to ask, well, I don't know if it's even asking. I mean, you're actually, from a position of authority, even asking is demanding. I mean, that's a distinction here. We're not on, students are not on equal footing with school boards or teachers, for that matter. But John Park.
Yeah,
okay.
and
sorry. Go ahead.
It was a grade 5 girl that wanted to opt out, and the teacher said no, she couldn't, or whatever.
Yeah,
that's pretty brave for a grade 5 kid.
Yeah.
Although who knows? Well, it's brave regardless, but who knows what kind of religious background the kid had herself? Maybe she was, taught that anything other than her religion was satanic or something stupid like that. But regardless,
what if it was satanic? Who cares? John Carpe says.
Well, you know what I mean.
He says that it is entirely appropriate to teach students about other religions, but there is a huge difference between teaching children about a religion and coercing them to participate in a religious practice. Either you allow religion in school and open the gates wide, and then you allow the Our Father prayer of Christians, which of course is exactly what happens in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Roll out the prayer rugs and pray towards Mecca and conduct an Aboriginal spiritual smudging ceremony, or the door is closed and it is closed for everybody. You can't have a double standard. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree. This is probably a pretty easy conclusion for courts. I mean, especially after the Saguenay decision.
I would hope.
Yeah. Especially after what?
The decision in Saguenay, the whole city council prayer thing, which was disallowed. I mean, a lot of people are going to say, what's the harm?
Well, I think that's obvious that the child was upset. And she wanted to opt out.
But that's her reaction.
That's
playing devil's advocate
the child's reaction to. That's important. I don't care if it's one child or all the children. If it's encroaching on her own religious beliefs, then it's inappropriate. Or if it's endorsing another religion that child doesn't want to participate in it, that's the point.
Yeah.
And there's also a health component. Like, have they proved that this stuff isn't going to harm the kids? I was forced in my classroom, because everybody believed, not for religious reasons, but for health, that they had to have lemon oil dispensed into the air. And what happened to me? I broke out in hives all over the place, all over my face, everywhere, because people had to have this and they wouldn't heed my warning beforehand. So, of course, I finally got excused and got to write it somewhere else, but with the health consequences. I mean, smoke does things to the lungs. I mean, you should be able to opt out for whatever reason, not just for religious.
Well, one would think that the fire department might have something to say about burning things in a building, in a public school building, right?
Yeah. And
that's aside from the
smoke inhalation. Yeah. Voluntary smoke inhalation. Mind you, okay, here's another thought. What if it was weed?
Oh, God, I'd be dead.
Oh, absolutely. I'm totally for having weed in elementary schools. Everybody should be. Rastafarianism. Hey, we got to teach it in the classrooms.
And I would be dead. I'm severely allergic to that stuff. I won't just break out in hives. My lungs will crawl out of me. So
I take it you've tried.
I tried it once, and the pain I will never forget. So,
but you make a good analogy, Randy. What if some teacher was teaching about Rastafarianism and said, hey, everybody's going to have to try some weed because that's part of the religion. We're going to experience this religion, right?
Yeah.
It's just as ridiculous. There's no difference.
Just as illegal, a violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Yeah. All right. Now, I want to go on to something that you reminded me of, Kris, and that is Jordan Peterson's fight against Bill C-16. Jordan Peterson's a University of Toronto professor. He's become quite a celebrity in the last month or two within the anti-social justice regressives crowd, and making the rounds of all the YouTube videos. And it's an interesting fight. Now, the Bill C-16 is something that's been passing rather quietly in the House of Commons, and it involves including in federal human rights legislation that people be addressed by the pronouns of their choice. Now, that doesn't sound like much because, most people are fine with he and she, but then you look at a place like New York that has 31 different pronouns. You need a roadmap to actually navigate that whole issue. And so that's only for federal employees. Okay, so for the moment, Bill C-16 applies only to federal employees, so that, like the taxation services or any government service would be required to, a person working for them would be required to use pronouns of that the person that they are addressing wants themselves to be labeled as. And some of them are pretty weird, like, gender blender, and how do you address somebody, this gender blender over here? Like,
well,
I don't know. I just, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Like, why would you be addressing somebody that you're directly dealing with in the third person in the first place, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's weird. I wouldn't, be sitting here in front of you and saying, oh, he, blah, blah, blah. I'd be saying Randy, or, I'd be talking directly to you, right?
Now,
shouldn't they agree on the terms before they pass this C-16?
Yeah, that's another good point. Like they did in New York State. And so they've got similar legislation there. This only applies again to federal employees. So what does a U of T professor have to do with this? Well, these kind of things have a tendency to trickle down. So if it's in federal human rights legislation, it may end up in provincial human rights legislation. Then he would be bound under that. Under those rules, because he works at a university that's publicly funded institution. It's publicly funded under provincial jurisdiction. And he would be required to try and figure out what the heck somebody wants to be called as.
Well, and what he's calling it now is kind of funny. In this, I have a Star article. I don't like the Star particularly, but how they've written this is yet somehow what's been promoted as a benevolent piece of legislation has become all tangled up in pronoun tyranny, largely because the conversation has been hijacked by academics who don't live in the real world and activists who reject the real world, both sides, quite frankly, disappearing up their own anuses in fringe dialectics. Oh, my.
So I'm going to play a little clip here. This is this is on a show called The Agenda with Steve Paikin. He appeared on there with a couple of other people discussing this, and he's discussing why he's pushing back against this kind of legislation.
Well, there's proximate and distal reasons. The proximate reasons was because I received some correspondence from clients of mine who had been, I would say, persecuted in a variety of ways by people who were politically correct, and they sent me some documentation about Bill C-16 and the associated policy statements on the Ontario Human Rights Commission, which I read and was not very happy about. And also because the University of Toronto decided to make anti-racism and anti-bias training, so-called anti-racism and anti-bias training, mandatory, which I regarded as an inappropriate incursion into the domain of political opinion by the university administration.
Have you taken that training yet?
No, and I don't have to yet. It's the HR department personnel that have to take it.
If they decide that you have to, will you?
No way. Not a chance.
Okay. And what's the other, you referred to persecution that friends or clients of yours had experienced, such as?
Yeah, well, there are lots of places now where the workplace has become, I would say, excessively politicized, and so people who have viewpoints, and this also includes, I would say, fairly radical leftist viewpoints, people don't feel comfortable at all in being able to use the language of their choice or to have even opinions about a variety of different things. So
he's concerned about language policing is essentially what it comes down to.
Well, legislating language.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, we're getting echo again here.
Oh, sorry. That's is it good? Good now?
Testing. Yes.
Yeah.
No, still echoing.
Oh, okay. I can go on and play another clip here. This is Peterson on free speech in the same program.
This issue is in some sense only peripherally about transsexual issues. It's more centrally about gender issues. And then on top of that, and I think it's the biggest issue, is that it's a free speech issue.
Yeah, so of course that's where he's going. And I'll just play some more clips here. They're going to discuss non-traditional pronouns. I love this part. It's coming up. It's just downright hilarious.
The issue of so-called non-traditional pronouns goes together with non-traditional gender identities. New York City, for example, recognizes 31 such gender expressions. In other words, besides man and woman, there are 29 other gender expressions. For example, pangender, queer gender, gender fluid, cross-dresser, bigendered, gender blender, and the list goes on.
Yeah, it's just amazing how many of these things there are. And this is a response by a person named Nicholas Matt, and he's I think he's in University of Waterloo. He's a transgender study professor. I didn't know there was such a thing, but apparently there is. So
I don't focus on pronouns because pronouns are actually part of a cisnormative culture. So what we do is learn about...
Well, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah, I was just about to explain.
Good.
So we don't start from a cisnormative perspective because that can't actually go very far.
What does cisnormative mean?
So I'm going to start us there. Cisnormative is basically the very popular idea and assumption that most people probably have, and definitely that our structures convey, that there is such a thing as male and female, that they connect to being a girl or a boy or a man or a woman. And then sometimes that will also recognize intersex or trans people or transsexual people, as you mentioned, because that's sometimes also referred to as a gender binary. So anything that fits within a gender binary can work within cisnormativity.
This guy actually said there's no such thing as biological sex.
It's not correct that there is such a thing as biological sex. And I'm a historian of medicine. Yeah. I can unpack that for you at great length if you want, but in the interest of time, I won't. So that's a very popular misconception.
What do you say to something like that?
Well, I'd have to hear the arguments because, I have heard arguments about, gender being a social construct, and I agree with that. Different cultures throughout different times have conceived of gender differently than we do here in North America and blah, 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 right? So
but he says
I'm
sex.
persuaded by that argument.
He did not say gender.
Say that sex is not biological, I'd have to hear the arguments. And it would be, to my mind, a theoretical argument and not, an empirical one, obviously, right?
Well, why would that? Okay, I got to ask why that would matter, because to me the empirical trumps anything else.
Because there's a difference between a thought experiment and an empirically grounded assertion.
Yeah, and
what does he mean?
But you can't make the claim of something that.
What does he mean by biological sex? Does he mean sexual versus asexual? Because that's biological sex.
Well, I think he's talking about male versus and female.
Okay, so you have different versions. You can have a guy with total XY chromosomes that never produced any testosterone and will look female, but still, basically speaking, you're going to have a lot of XX and XY and then some variation in between. But you got to recognize there's still some males and some females, right?
Yeah, maybe that's the argument.
Cisnormative is the norm. I mean, it is the norm. Well, get over it.
And you still got to accept it. If we got to accept these other variations, which we do, well, you got to accept the norm as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it doesn't at all explain this.
All or nothing.
Well, when your job is to challenge these, the what did he say? The cisgender binary distinction. That's the kind of arguments you're going to invoke, isn't it? Right?
It doesn't have to be no longer any normative.
It's not going to convince me, though. And I'm sorry, there is a biological aspect to sex, right?
Totally. Yeah.
There's even asexual sex. There is non-sexual sex, but us humans, we produce sexually until we put things in a petri dish, and
well, I don't think
we can do it asexually, but...
I think they're talking about...
But even that's still sexual, because sexual reproduction is when you mix up the genes. Asexual is when you're like a clone.
Well, there's also gene transfer.
Yeah.
Bacteria.
So if you can clone humans and call it asexual, I guess.
No, I'm not. I don't think they're talking about the how procreation happens. They're talking about sex as in male, female.
Yeah.
And
Gender.
I still don't buy it. So it's trying to say that sex doesn't exist or gender doesn't exist is basically what I get the sense of happening here. I throw that out the window. I mean, yes, of course it does. Is Kris there, or is she stepped out?
Yeah.
Oh, she stepped out.
No, I'm here.
No. All right.
I'm listening. Yeah.
Are you listening? Okay.
Well, and I guess further to what I was saying about, I think he's making the claim that it causes him cognitive dissonance to refer to people and
yeah,
if
sure
I were to get all hardcore and say, okay, I find it when women change their last names, I find that to be an instance of what's the word that they toss around now? Internalized misogyny,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
You know, the reason women changed their last name was because they became men's property. So to my mind, that's
the
it
historical
causes
aspect.
me, if I get all hardcore, like I said, I don't care, but if I want to get all hardcore, that's not their real identity. Right? That's not the identity they were born with. And if I keep insisting on calling them by their maiden name, I'm being a dick. Sorry, I'm imposing my values on them. So that's where I don't buy into Peterson's argument that it causes him this, like he disagrees with it. Well, be polite, right? But again,
they're forcing their values on him. That's the
protecting freedom of speech, right?
But they are forcing their values on him, literally. I mean, in a legislated way.
Yeah, but to what harm? They're not telling him that he needs to be, transgender
well, the harm
or anything
is
like that. They're just asking him to use a pronoun. Like, who
no, they're not
shit?
asking. Who's asking? Right? There's nobody asking.
Well, okay. Yeah, okay.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
that's
you're right.
That's the whole issue
that's
here.
My point. That's the issue here, right?
And this language is not changing organically at all. It's being forced on us.
Yeah. I agree with.
So there's a lot of problems with this. Like seriously, he said, "Oh, okay, I'm a history of medicine professor, and I could unpack that for you, but in the interest of time, I won't." And I'm just like, "What?" So in other words, argument from authority, we're done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just gets even more. Well, let's just talk about. Let's just hear from Jordan Peterson one more time here. On made-up words.
Well, fundamentally, there were two things that really bothered me, although there have been other things I've thought about since. One was that I was being asked, as everyone is, to use a certain set of words that I think are the constructions of people who have a political ideology that I don't believe in and that I also regard as dangerous.
What are those words?
Those are the made-up words that people now describe as gender neutral. And so, to me, they're an attempt to control language and in a direction that isn't happening organically. It's not happening naturally. People aren't picking up these words in the typical way that new words are picked up, but by force and by fiat. And I would say by force because there's legislative power behind them. So and I don't like these made-up words, Z and Zer and that sort of thing.
Okay, what about...
Yeah, so he's worried about basically this newspeak kind of thing going on, like from Orwell's 1984. And
well,
it's pretty much like that.
He is talking about, all words are made up. Obviously, language is a, human construct. They're not ordained. And, we don't think twice about calling somebody a chairperson as opposed to a chairman or whatever, right? So, and I think he's right about things happening organically. And I think his point that I agree with is that our language shouldn't be legislated, right?
Yeah.
I do disagree with. He made the point about violates his conscience to use certain words, and I don't find that particularly persuasive because I brought this. I don't care if people want to use pronouns. I don't have a problem with that. I'll do my best as a polite person to try and make people feel comfortable. And I brought up the example of addressing women who are married by their, if they take on their husband's name, right? Now, if somebody keeps insisting on calling you by your maiden name after you've changed to your husband's name, you're being a bit of a douche, unless it's, by accident, your aunt is 80 years old and she keeps making this mistake, right? Like, I think it does, what is that expression? It picks not my pocket and it breaks not my leg or whatever to make people feel comfortable. No big deal. It's the fact of it being legislated that is troubling.
Yeah, Bering made that exact point. the YouTuber Bearing, who I just adore because he's so damn funny. But he makes a salient point there that, you know, if you ask me to use pronouns that you prefer, I'm going to have no problems with that. But you want to be a douche about it, forget it. I'm just going to call you whatever I feel like. You and I, Kris, had a very long Facebook discussion on this on instant messaging.
That's what I'm drawing on.
And and you actually changed my mind on something. And
thank you.
It was had to do with it doesn't go beyond he and she, because you know, like you were saying that a trans person, before they go through the transition surgically, that they already identify as the other sex. And I've heard from several people, I know certainly like Blair, what's her name?
Blair White?
Blair White, yeah. A YouTuber. So it's certainly completely be on Peterson's side. In fact, I know she is. And she is a trans woman. I know from other people that most trans people want to be identified as the gender to which they transition to, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with there at all. It's a very fringe group that I would almost say it seems psychologically unstable. I mean, if you saw what happened at the University of Toronto when Peterson was speaking outdoors, they actually committed mild acts of violence against you know, people like that right winger. What's her name? The names are escaping me.
I know you're talking about the reporter.
Yeah, from Rebel Media. Anybody who's associated with Ezra Levant. I'm not gonna go anywhere.
Dodgy.
Yeah. But anyway.
Did you know Ezra sells Fire Them All stuff? What is this Fire Them All?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't keep up with Ezra Levant. He's a douchebag.
Yeah, I got to figure this out now.
So something else that happened that was in this program that was just amazing was this.
Nick, can I be clear on something? You've accused him of abusing students by not using the pronouns they want to be addressed by.
That's how I see it, absolutely.
That is tantamount to abuse in your view? Absolutely.
Many global documents, many organizations.
How about violence? Is it tantamount to violence?
Yes,
How about
absolutely.
hate speech? Is it tantamount to hate speech?
Yes, of course. It's hate speech
Fine,
to tell someone that you won't refer to them as in a way that they that recognizes their humanity and dignity.
This is abuse? Wow. It's amazing. The Oppression Olympics. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, I just want to point out they've got pronoun tyranny on one side and they've got abuse on the other side. I don't think they'll ever be able to really agree on any of this.
But I think there is a side that has the right in this one for the moment.
Well, and the only way, if ever, there's a way to negotiate the bridge, it certainly isn't to take away freedom of speech. Yeah. It's to talk it out and discuss it. Yeah. Then those things might arise organically like they ought to.
Yeah.
This is Peterson on political correctness. I really like this because I think he's really hit on something here.
Well, I think it's a particular kind of ideological game, and I think the outcome is twofold. It's to make the player feel morally superior and also to take rather serious axe swings at the foundation of society. And so the game is identify a domain of human endeavor, note that there's a distribution of success. Some people are doing comparatively better and some people are doing comparatively worse. Define those doing worse as victims. Define those doing better as perpetrators. Identify with the victims. Have yourself a set of enemies handy to vent your resentment on. Feel good about it, even though it didn't really require any work on your part. And then endlessly repeat. And that's why I've seen that happening on campuses in particular for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay, I'm echoing again here, sorry. Can you control the echo a bit?
Nope, can do nothing about it, sorry.
Okay, I lost my train of thought now. Okay, what I disagree with is that when he says some people are doing better than others, some of the people that are asserting this stuff are doing very well.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they're already in the elite group, and they're looking, I don't agree that they're victims. Some of these people are academics who are doing very well in life, so I don't think that's a valid argument. I do agree about the moral superiority thing, though.
I think they're. But I think they're talking about
I'm looking
class.
for somebody that's doing better than me. No, some of these people are doing better than everybody else and still doing the moral superiority thing.
I think, well, yeah, the point taken, but I think he's talking about
depending
class.
on how we how we define better. What does that mean?
No, this is. I think he's talking about class. He's not talking about individuals. He's talking. It's a whole. Blacks are oppressed. All blacks are oppressed by white people, and all white people are oppressors. That's what I think he's talking about.
I know, but the people that are asserting these claims aren't oppressed. A lot of them.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They purport to be speaking on.
But they identify
who are, but they're not. They're not.
True, but they're not. But they're. They believe they are.
Yeah, that's what the moral support is. The moral superiority part of the argument.
What's that?
Persuasive, but,
what's that woman from MTV's name? Francesca something or other. The racist.
I don't know her last name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
She claims she's not a racist or a sexist. That's bullshit. Of course she is. It's all like, here's an example of the argumentation. I mean, I was just watching a video today where she was saying that in daycares, black children are about 18% of the demographics of daycares, but are given punishment, time out, sent home, whatever, at a level of 50%, and therefore racism. That's the level of argumentation that you hear, and it's just absurd. Okay, it doesn't know how to use a microscope, to view.
Yeah,
things.
because I think there is systemic racism in terms of, I think when you talk about systemic, you're talking about like government institutions and stuff like that. But, daycares are an institution, education.
I don't think there's any racism in that at all.
Racism exists.
Yes, racism exists, but she's saying
Absolutely.
She's gone from.
But the argumentation is.
Yeah, she cannot make that leap. She cannot make that leap. And I don't even think it exists.
one of the videos I was watching was, saying, Asians are doing better. Does that mean that, that white people are being discriminated against?
Yeah,
right?
I made that point myself.
In certain areas, right? Yeah.
That's why the wage gap argument is so bad, because in terms of whites versus blacks, because everybody leaps to that racism conclusion without actually dissecting it, or sexism for that matter. Yes, but the Asian men make quite a bit more than white men do. They earn it, and nobody's claiming racism for that. Nobody should. Mm-hmm. So why are they claiming racism when it's white versus black? It's really, really specious reasoning. It may even be true, but you can't get there without a few intervening steps.
Yeah. They, like you say, more nuance and a finer microscope, right?
It's not even nuance. It's just recognizing that you have. If you take the wage gap, black versus white men, and claim racism, that's your hypothesis. That's not your conclusion. That is a new hypothesis explaining the wage gap. Now you have to actually demonstrate that is the case, and nobody's ever done that. Yeah.
I don't think you can prove it so much as you can bring variables to bear on your argument, but just pulling out one statistic and making that claim is not.
I want to see an experiment. Right? I want to see an actual, or not even an experiment, but somebody taking.
They've done experiments, like with when they've done the eBay advertisement, when it's a person with a black hand versus a white hand, and sales are higher for the white-handed advertisement, all other things being equal, and putting in resumes where one is a white-sounding name versus a black-sounding name. So I think there's if you bring some of these pieces together, you can have a pretty robust argument. But if you're just relying on,
you can have an argument for implicit bias. I don't know about racism. That's a bit stronger. You can have.
Well, where do you get bias from? Right? I think, there is such a thing as kind of an implicit racism or whatever that term is, kind of thing, right? Why else would you have a bias?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, are they getting paid less for the exact same job, or are they just not getting the jobs?
No, it's nothing to do with that. Yeah. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about men versus women, a lot of it is just life choices. And, men actually tend to work more hours per week. It's very dependent on marital status. It depends on how many children you have. It depends on all sorts of variables. And the wage, just summing up what women make versus what men make and taking the median of each just is such a coarse.
Doesn't give the big picture.
Yeah. You get no picture. You get no picture at all.
Yeah, and someone was trying to make the argument that men are discriminated against in like kindergarten to grade, 10. Thing is, men to teach these higher grades, you need more education. If men aren't at home tending children, they have time to get this other education. You need to teach the higher grades. So I don't think men are being discriminated against. I think they just pick the higher paying jobs that you need more education for.
Yeah, they do.
Well, I think there's arguments that can be brought to. Sorry, cat just jumped. Not my cat, but
I need your cat.
Arguments to. Where was I now? Arguments to be brought to bear on the fact that, maybe when there's better daycare and stuff like that, women can have more access to education. Because I do think that, gender does play a role, but not in such a way that you can just argue by invoking the wage gap, right?
Yeah.
You need to explain the wage gap without just pulling it out of your, taverns.
Yeah. It's much more complex than most people would have you believe. There may be a sexist component in there. Really hard to tease it out. Very difficult.
Not really. You just have to have a little bit of nuance because, I've studied feminism and there's some persuasive arguments out there. Unfortunately, those arguments, the nuance isn't getting out there. It's kind of,
arguments are great, but I want to actually see numbers. If it doesn't have a number attached to it that's empirically derived, I'm really not all that interested. It's just a hypothesis.
Well, that's true, but some hypothesis. There is persuasion in theory, right? And some theories are more persuasive than others.
If it's something that's objective, I'm really going to demand empirical evidence.
Yeah, fair enough.
Every time.
I'm pretty happy when a theory makes me think about things a different way, whether I accept it as true or not. It's still enriched my thinking.
You can entertain an idea without accepting it.
Yeah, and I think about things like Jonathan Swift's essay, A Modest Proposal, and the one that Peter Singer did about what was it now? We should all just agree that we won't have any more children and we'll just die off and leave the planet to be. And that's, right? It's a thought experiment. It's not meant to be taken literally, right?
Some people do.
Yeah.
I know, because there was outrage.
Well,
and there was outrage with Jonathan Swift's essay, too. It's like, come on, people. Like, it's to make you think. It's not to be taken literally, right? And, these are the things that enlighten us. But if you take, obviously, you'd be crazy if you took up Peter Singer's argument, let's build some activism around this. Yes, let's do it. Let's, forbid people to have any more children and blah, blah, blah. Peter Singer was saying we should do this willingly, obviously, right? But, there's things that are thought experiments that do not necessarily make for good activism, obviously, right? And unfortunately, that's what's been happening, I would suggest.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Randy and the Legion of Reason, the show that will probably last another week if Mom gets us some more pizza rolls.
We got one more story.
Okay.
I just don't believe this. This is from the Independent. Swedish women get hotline to report mansplaining.
What was that again?
Swedish women get hotline to report mansplaining.
Oh, for what purpose?
Okay, here we go.
So they can bitch about it?
Women who have things mansplained to them in the workplace can now report it to a dedicated hotline. Unionen, Sweden's largest union, is encouraging members to call up when male colleagues give them unsolicited lectures on things they already understand. The organization, which represents 600,000 private sector workers, launched the advice line on Monday and said it will be open from 10 to 4 every day as part of a campaign to highlight and stamp out the insidious and damaging practice. For those who might not be familiar with the modern portmanteau, the union defined mansplaining as, quote, when a man explains something to a woman without being asked, particularly something which she might already know more about than the man, unquote. A study by the American Psychological Association found that men, quote, tend to overestimate their intelligence to a much greater extent than women, unquote, and showed that, so, quote, self-assurance in men grows with age, unquote.
Where did they come up with that?
I want to see that study.
Well,
I want to see that study.
Out there. It's probably out there.
It's called experience. People, people do get
but
more self-assured with experience.
Well, of course, but
I would hope women do that too.
Arrogance might arise with
that's totally different
experience too, right? Yeah, and I think that's where the mansplaining comes. Well, I wouldn't even say arrogance. Sometimes you just don't know somebody's level. I mean, I've certainly explained things to people and they're not getting it or whatever. And then you have to speak slowly and use little words. And it's kind of, condescending, but it has to be done.
Like no man has ever
on the
been,
other hand,
had that happen.
And also I've started explaining things to people that already knew. And they're like, hey, I already know that. Oh, okay, cool. I'll shut up now, right? All you have to do is say, yeah, I know. Can we move on to, the next step, right?
Exactly. Like what point?
Like stand up for yourself, for Christ's sake, instead of whining over a bloody
And that's going to be the point I'm bringing
ridiculous.
up. Isn't this just more infantilization of women? Like,
absolutely.
you poor
I find it
snowflake.
kind of offensive, really.
It's totally offensive. I would be incensed at this.
Well, if they really wanted to address it, they should do it the way Christine did. Hand out a flyer. This is how you deal with it. Done.
Yeah.
Here. Let me read you this. When left unchecked, mansplaining can contribute to men earning more than women and being promoted faster, the organization said. Quote, something most of us, regardless of sex, think is unfair and want to change, unquote. Unsurprisingly, the initiative unleashed a flood of negative comments on Unionen's Facebook page, particularly from men. Why not from women?
No, I'm sure some women were negative about that too.
Well, they're not empowering women at all. Like basically, you need a course on assertiveness. Then that's the issue. If you're not going to be assertive by the way someone's explaining something to you, or that they are going to, like, really.
The campaign is not intended to single out or add debt. What do you mean add debt to all men? I believe them. The campaign aims to raise awareness among all of us, regardless of gender, about this phenomenon. How does it do that if only women phone up the hotline? I mean, the person doing the mansplaining.
And then what is the hotline going to do about it?
Yeah.
Are they going to tell her to be assertive and go explain to him that she knows this already?
Or are they going to throw the poor guys in jail?
Yeah. So
write them up as HR.
Or fine them or something stupid
Unionen
like that.
said the phone line, which will be staffed by a gender expert, and a group of feminist politicians, comedians, and scientists, is about equality. What? What's a comedian going to do?
Is this voluntary?
Yeah, totally. But a comedian?
Maybe the comedian will be more assertive and will have better advice.
Oy.
Well, there's that comedian, I think she's from England, that...
I know who you're talking about.
She's quite a piece of work. Yeah.
She's not, okay, I'm not trying to say that women aren't funny, but she's not funny. Okay, she's particularly her. She is not. I know exactly who you're talking about. She appears on a lot of these... British talk or on news programs talking about feminism.
Yeah, I've never actually seen any stand-up or anything by her. I just hear her beaking off at things like that.
Much what she is. Just what she
so I don't know if she's funny or not. I don't find her. I find her condescending and arrogant when the little times I've seen her, which I'll admit it is not much, but definitely funny is just not the word I describe.
Why femsplaining. No, sorry, not femsplaining. Mansplaining got into the Oxford Dictionary, but there's no corresponding femsplaining, for instance.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little sexist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not equal.
No dissent. We'll move on. There's a comment from somebody named Daniel Bergman. He wrote, how would women react if you used words like old biddy chat or female whining? Equality can't be won using negative invective, but should be built using mutual respect and partnership. But maybe I'm the only one who thinks so. I mean, it's just a horrible idea. It just promotes this victimhood narrative that, these people have a job. They could probably have a very good job. They're not victims.
Yeah.
They're certainly not oppressed. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I can see in some contexts where, if you're in a position of, if there's an authoritative structure kind of thing, right? Like you're low on the totem pole and your boss has the power to hire, to fire you or whatever. And that, male, female, the boss is a male and the, employee is a woman and he's constantly belittling her and that kind of thing. That's a problem. And she, fears that she can't speak up because she's going to be fired or, right?
And that's more than mansplaining.
Yeah, that's
far more. Yeah.
That's an HR issue. Yeah. That's a real HR issue and should be dealt with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But mansplaining is like, really? That's your worst problem?
Yeah.
Seriously.
So that one example I liked is when there was a woman astronaut and somebody was mansplaining her words to her about some kind of sound in space and something or other. Oh, it was horrible.
Well, that's the other thing too. If somebody's, explaining something like that and you already know about it, it's kind of fun just to, sit back and listen and let them make asses of themselves. That's always fun too, right?
Maybe say one thing
I've done that
after.
Yeah, especially if it's in a crowd or a social situation and they're telling everybody else around there knows that you know better than them and they're trying to explain it to you and they're just hanging themselves out to dry. I find that actually very amusing. So
yeah, it was amusing. I think it was on Twitter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, should we talk about the orange elephant?
We must.
Yeah.
Cheeto.
Well,
Cheeto Hitler or something.
Yeah, no kidding. He it looks like he's got keratinitis. Eating
he's
way
trying to be gold. Come on, he's gold.
Yeah.
He's probably taking those the carrot derivative capsules or whatever that are supposed to give you the fake tan or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Fake tan and
that's keratinosis.
Fake hair.
Okay.
That's you get a overabundance of vitamin A, and it's actually very toxic. It's if you go too high.
Okay. Because I've heard of Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, oh, is that what's wrong with him?
I've heard of people that are just teaching their babies to eat solid food, and their babies turn orange because all they've done is eaten nothing but carrots because they've discovered how great carrots are and stuff like that.
Yep.
Said no baby ever. Jesus. Ugh. Carrots are disgusting. They're not as disgusting as cauliflower. That's the worst. Parsnips is worse. Parsnips. They had all the chlorophyll sucked out of them by some chlorophyll vampire and just awful.
No, a lot of babies love carrots. Yeah. And that's all for like a week when they first discover them or something like that.
I must have been either an exception.
My son got a rash and water blisters on his cheeks when he first ate them.
Huh. Wow.
Well,
he can eat them now, though.
Speaking of babies, Trump won the election. And boy, were we wrong. Well, okay, I'm going to say I'm wrong. Kris is claiming she was right.
And
she said there was the possibility.
Yeah.
I was in denial. I was like, that can't happen.
I couldn't believe it. I was watching the election.
Well, your reaction was, I'm getting rid of my USA.
I'm still thinking about renouncing my U.S. citizenship. It's not Trump. It's the populace.
It's people who voted for him and the people who didn't vote at all. There are so many people who didn't even vote compared to last
50% time. 50% turnout, or just slightly more than 50% turnout? Terrible.
I think a total of 18% of the population voted for Trump was what I saw.
Well, it was a disaster, as in the words of Donald Trump.
Huge disaster.
Huge, bigly.
Bigly disaster. And
now he's still having Twitter wars.
Well, Twitter wars are still going on. I mean, what happened in that musical to his vice president selection?
Pence didn't object to what happened there. What happened there was they had this short little speech, and we should bring it up. It was just basically them. You've watched this. This is about, American history. Part of that history is our human rights, inalienable rights, and we're just asking that you keep that in mind, you protect them. People booed Pence as he came in.
Yeah, they did.
But that was not the cast. That was audience members. So for Trump to go say that Pence was harassed by the cast members and now the cast members need to be the ones to apologize, that's a complete crap.
Yeah, and
then he has a problem with SNL sketch again, a brilliant sketch, which was hilarious.
And
now he wants equal time to speak against the sketch.
It's ridiculous. It's entertainment. Grow up.
Yeah, and he's, going on about being politically correct, and yet he expects it, when he's butthurt.
But there's a lot of people that need to grow up after this. I mean, people are going, first...
Including a lot of people on the left.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of stuff that they're mad at everybody that voted Trump. Okay, no, I'm sorry. They actually voted their conscience.
It was the people that didn't vote that had him elected, for goodness' sake.
It's actually
like
worse
Hillary
than
or
that.
Nobody. Well, it was Hillary or it was not Hillary, but definitely Trump then.
Okay,
it's not Hillary, it's Trump.
This is from the Mail Online. There were 112 anti-Trump protesters that were arrested in Portland, and more than half of them, 70 of them, didn't vote.
I'm I'm sorry, you can't complain now. You had your chance.
There
was something you could do.
There's a technical term for these people. What is it, Ian? Oh yeah, moronic twats. Okay, you are moronic twats. You don't get to protest when you didn't bother to vote. Oh my goodness! And I don't have any doubt that this is any different in any other city. You know, what the
Probably.
hell? What the hell?
And you know, even if you protest, at least don't be doing violence.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right?
These things turn to You know, people would be
that's
going
why
on.
Well, I assume that's why they're arrested, because you shouldn't be arrested just for protesting.
No,
Obviously, that's your
you
right.
have a right to protest.
There was lots of
peacefully.
writing.
If you're not protesting peacefully, you'll get arrested.
Exactly.
So a lot of the people that I actually used to respect on Facebook kept saying things like, "Oh, well, it was, you know, if the last election, you know, the Republicans were protesting, blah blah blah, so we can too." It's like, what is this, a schoolyard? You know, part of responsible government is the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Okay, that's one of the principles of democratic government: orderly and peaceful transfer of power. You had your chance at the polls. You had your chance. The Electoral College is not going to do anything, so quit demanding that.
No, they have to vote what you voted. Otherwise, there's going to be more chaos.
The states can release them from that, but there is absolutely no valid reason. I mean, and please, I don't like Trump is not a valid reason for releasing the Electoral College members from their duty. But it
probably is a worthwhile thing to think about in the future to try and change and do it, right?
Change
thing
what?
Is, does the Electoral College represent people, like in California, there's so many more, but yet you look at Nebraska and seems like they had more of a say than California kind of thing.
They need to.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile issue to discuss.
Yeah, it just won't affect anything now.
No, but if you're you know sincere about wanting to change things, then there was I think a senator that put through some kind of proposal on changing the Electoral College or you know changing things in some way. Get on board with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now's the time to roll up your sleeves. Instead, people are messaging movie theaters in Hamilton, Ontario about how they're going to get boycotted. They're like, we're not the theater in New York City. We're in Ontario. And then there's a movie theater, a Hamilton movie theater, not the Hamilton Theater. They're also getting hate mail, too. And they're trying to make it clear that they're not the theater. We don't have actors. The cast isn't our cast. Come on, people.
They're not.
This is how much they look things up before they do things nowadays.
Yeah, by the way, for people who don't know, Hamilton is a city in Ontario that has nothing whatsoever to do with the play.
So if you're going to message Hamilton Movie Theater, whether it's in New York City or Ontario, it's the wrong theater. Stop it.
But there were some, you know, bright spots. This is from the Catholic Register. U.S. voters reject nearly all ballot measures on issues of Catholic concern. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
vote for it then.
Yeah, basically, these were measures that were on ballots. Like in Colorado, the Colorado now has now allows assistance in dying. That's one very good thing. So does Washington D.C., but I think that was actually before the election. I'm not sure. Also, Florida now allows marijuana, medicinal marijuana. So that's another step forward. You know, things like that. Let's see.
There's one place that we're voting on buses, increasing buses outside of certain areas. I wonder if they were successful. It's funny they have to vote on that kind of thing, though. Here in Red Deer, if they wanted to change the bus system, they'd probably just do it. There wouldn't be a vote.
No, there'd probably be some kind of, you know, council meetings and stuff like that, or, you know, what do you call those, like, when public consultations.
Okay. We should have one, though.
Well, you know, I'm sure that happens.
You just have to pay more attention.
It's just people just don't participate in it usually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I never see much. Like, the whole fluoride thing was an issue, of course.
So if you want to see some how the church interferes with things, okay, the Boston Archdiocese spent $850,000 in a last-minute effort to defeat a ballot measure on recreational marijuana initiatives, saying increased drug use was a threat to those served by the Catholic Church's health and social service programs. A Boston Globe report on the campaign quoted an archdiocesan spokesman who said the money was from a discretionary, unrestricted central ministry fund and probably kept away from their victims that were treated horribly in Boston. In a statement opposing the ballot measure, the Massachusetts Catholic bishops referenced a report from the National Institute of Drug Abuse that said marijuana is the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States. Of course. So what?
It's least dangerous?
So what? Just make it legal. Hey, it's no longer the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States.
And then you can tax it like they did in some states.
It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be illegal. It's actually got less harmful health effects than alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh.
And some medical benefits as well. I guess alcohol has some medical benefits as well, too.
Yeah.
But,
depending on the person and how their brain and chemistry is and yada yada.
Well, I'm sure before anesthetic was invented, people really appreciated alcohol,
Yeah. But now we have better ones.
So,
can we talk about Bannon?
In a bit. I just, I don't know much about Bannon. Well, you can talk about him. I just wanted to get some of the stuff out of the way about the left. Now, Kris, you brought up the left having a lot of blame in this, and of course they don't blame themselves. Ever heard of Sally Kohn?
Yeah.
Sally Kohn.
No.
K-O-H-N.
Sorry, you cut out there a little bit too.
Sally Kohn is a lesbian feminist, actually misandrist. She's not really a feminist. And she tweeted this. She's one of these feminists who is okay with Sharia law. One of those kind of, that kind of thing.
An apologist type?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Political correctness didn't cause Trump. Hate and resentment caused Trump. Political correctness is the solution, not the problem. Yeah. That's what I call oblivious. That's kind of the definition of oblivious.
It's not being introspective, is it?
No, it's not.
Because silencing people drives those opinions underground, and when they come up, they're ugly. Yeah, I'm
going to play this from Crouten T. Now, the first voice you're going to hear is from a YouTuber who's a feminist called Mariana Shut Up, and Crouten T will talk after that, basically eviscerating her.
Women, people of color, Muslims, immigrants, disabled people, gay people, bi people, trans people, people who are branded as different. We are scared for our lives.
And this right here is the reason why you lost. The over-exaggeration, the emphasis on identity politics. I remember a few years ago, not actually a few years ago, more than 8 years ago, when Obama actually became famous and well known within the democratic field of US politics, which was when he held a speech saying, I believe the words were something along the lines of, there is no white America, there is no black America, there is a United States of America. And with you, we get a listing of people on the emphasis of their differences. We do not get an emphasis on equality on the basis of everyone being equal before the law, everyone having an equal standing as a person, an entitlement to the same treatment of basic human dignity. No, what we get with you is a listing of people on the basis of differences so we can treat them differently, discriminate, and treat better or worse on the basis of those differences, those superficial differences. Race, faith, sexuality. You're no better than the people who made policy decisions on the basis of these differences 50 years ago or 20 years ago. It is the reason why you lost. And the fact that you're unable to fucking see that, it really boggles my mind. It really does. You have spent the past years, the past 3 to 4 years, pointing at people, saying you have no right to complain about anything because you are a horrible white male blah, blah, blah. And now you stand there and are surprised that these people ended up not voting for you and what you stand for.
So that pretty much reiterates what you said, that, you push these things down, or worse, you treat people like they're oppressors, and it came back to bite them.
Yeah, you shut people up, and, ideas that should have been ridiculed because they've been presented out there in the realm of ideas didn't. They were neglected as topics of discussion, and now you see it, in Europe, here, well, less so here, but it's coming, And I think this election of Trump was just paradigmatic of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just amazing the responses. I was going to say fear, but it goes way beyond fear. The hysteria of Trump being elected. It just boggles my mind. I mean, it's like the world has just come to an end. You know, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be, America's not going to be great again. It hasn't been great for a long time. There's a wonderful, The Newsroom. Ever heard of that show? There's a great speech that you can look up on YouTube where the protagonist of the show tells a bunch of these university students why America isn't great anymore. They list a bunch of statistics of where they are in literacy, math, and it's a wonderful speech. But it ain't going to be Trump that makes it great again. I mean,
exactly.
And I don't think anybody thinks that. So I'm very disappointed with the choice. But there's something that might good that might come out of this. We'll see. I'm hoping.
Hopefully, because I think some people are being introspective. I posted something by I can't remember his last name. Pi, his first name was, and he went, from England. He went off on a rant about the Brexit vote and the Trump vote, and I'm thinking about that. Sorry.
Well, soon to be Germany vote when Merkel's up for re-election.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
Well, what about France? They're taking on a right winger right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of the video you responded to questions people have for anti-SJWs or whatever, right? Yeah. And there's why don't you like being called what was it?
A right winger. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't understand, first of all, where the term regressive left came from, which was Najid Nawaz. And second of all, that we're trying to call out our own, right? Yeah. We
I'm
are
not a right
part
winger.
of the left.
I'm a centrist. I'm
part
left.
I put myself in a left for sure.
I'm left on some things, right on some things, but it all evens out in the end, so I call myself a centrist.
I'm center left.
Yeah. And this is the thing. They assume that anybody that doesn't agree with them is a right winger. That just boggles my mind.
No.
Are you stupid?
Yeah. And nobody wants to be called a right winger or a racist or a rape apologist or a misogynist or internalized misogynist. Nobody wants to be called that. So people shut up. And now we're starting to see the backlash. And it's good that people are like us are starting to treat these things. Because I didn't want to talk about this 3 years ago. I don't want to be called those names. But now I'm like, screw it. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing. If you dissent, you are labeled these things. And whether or not you are a reasonable person is irrelevant. Islamophobia is the prime candidate of that. I mean, you don't like the tenets of Islam. You're an Islamophobe. You're just scared of Islam. I mean,
no.
No.
And no, I disagree. If you're, if you're reasonable, you're not irrelevant. You're punished for it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a shaming tactic. And shame is one of the strongest emotions, and it's one of the strongest controlling emotions. Mm-hmm. There was an article.
That's never worked on me.
You slut.
Yeah. Well, I wish. Might be more fun.
But that's
internalized misogyny.
Yeah.
Then you get people coming. My favorite is, if you're going to go to the doctor and they tell you they're going to tell you to lose weight. That's fat shaming. Like you just gotta. Yeah. It blows my mind. You went to the doctor with something with a condition, the underlying cause for which is being overweight. What else are they supposed to do?
Or you just went for your regular checkup, right?
Oh, even absolutely. And it's like, no, that's not fat shaming.
No.
It's just, they no longer accept that being large is not bad for your health. They reject the evidence.
It's an ideology. It's part of the ideology. Yeah, you can't fat shame people. Like, don't tell them it's bad for their health. It's like, no, who cares about the evidence and all the epidemiological evidence and.
I got called a skinny bitch for pointing out how there's no obese elderly.
What do you mean there's no obese elderly?
There aren't any obese
I suppose so.
You won't see someone who's 90 years old and 500 pounds. You won't.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah, you won't.
But I got called a skinny bitch and told to quit fat shaming.
Well, it's the whole identity politics. And I think I told you the story about when I was commenting on this TED talk that was where the guy was suggesting that everybody's salary be made public. And I'm just like, that's not going to, first of all, it's predicated on the wage gap thing. Second of all, it doesn't really demonstrate anything because there's so many variables that go into somebody's salary, like their experience and how many hours they put in, even for the
how
same
long they've
job.
worked for the organization.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's silly.
Even people we hire will not get the same wage as the younger guy who got hired.
So, this person was saying, well, said by the white male, and I'm just like, somebody else fortunately chimed in and said, well, you're a racist and a sexist, which is, of course, what I was going to say. And this person came back saying, well, I'm racist and sexist because I want equality. No, and that opened the door. And I just said, no, you're a racist and a sexist because my skin color and my gender invalidate my opinion. So that's why you're a sexist and racist. That shut her right up. Never heard from her again. I hope she took something from that, and because it's sexist and racist. I don't care about anybody's skin color. I don't care about their gender. They have opinions. They have, their validity. It depends on what, the evidence they have supporting them are. Anyway, so he's made some selections, Trump, for not just the vice president. Bannon, who used to be in charge of Breitbart Communications, I think it's called.
He took over after Breitbart died.
Yeah, he's a pretty ugly looking.
It used to be the Drudge Report. Well, and he's scary. Like, I've made the conclusion based on what I've read about him. Like I said, he took over the site after Breitbart's death, and this is a Maclean's.ca article. Breitbart, the website that rules America now. And it goes right into his racism. It goes into his anti-Semitism. Well, there's an article that just came out from Breitbart saying why there shouldn't be women in science. There shouldn't be as many women as men in science. And it's the most sexist, most racist, most anti-Semitic, basically anything that you could possibly not want to be an American value, that's what Bannon is. So when I look at him now and I've asked around, does this not mean, since he does support the KKK and their ideals, doesn't that mean the KKK now is helping to run America?
Yeah.
No, I think
kind of interesting.
I wouldn't go quite so far to say that, but
he's
certainly,
the chief
obviously, there's
the chief strategist.
Well, is he in the KKK?
He supports them, all their ideals. He pretty much is, in his articles, is the KKK. He's a white supremacist.
I just don't want to see us doing the same thing that we're accusing other people of doing by saying, oh, the KKK is running things, when that's just not the case. But obviously, there's a racist,
a white supremacist.
It's two different claims.
Government.
Yeah. Okay.
He is now
that's
part
a
of the
fair
government.
claim.
He's the chief strategist.
But to make a leap saying that the KKK is running the government is too much, right?
Well,
it's doing exactly what we were,
That brings me to my next point. If Trump, so again, this is going to be a stretch, but it worries me. If Trump supports these ideals enough to make this guy chief strategist, is he not white supremacist as well? How could he hire someone as a chief strategist unless he supports that point of view?
I agree with you there.
So then that's where my mind goes. Well, along with Bannon, along with Ebell, along with this other guy being considered now that Carson is not for education, these people are all racist. Is there one that we can say is not racist? Like, if you look at this Jerry Falwell Jr.? Yeah, Jerry Falwell Jr. Is he not racist?
But he's not part of the cabinet.
No, but he's going to be like...
yeah, well, they've always
Secretary of Education? This guy is going to be, making sure ID gets taught in school. So when you look at everybody involved, that he's starting to make his ministers and making his cabinet, which among them aren't racist now?
Well, it's scary. The choices are scary, to be sure. No question about that. But I'm just saying, let's not get our rhetoric too inflammatory.
Well, people have claimed...
I'm trying not to. I'm trying to look for evidence against that.
People have claimed Jeff Sessions,
chief strategist.
Yeah.
If that.
I don't know anything about Bannon, but people have claimed that Jeff Sessions is racist, and what I've heard, it's more like mudslinging at him than actual any substance to it. But I still don't like the right wing aspect of him. But at least
what are
Mike
the charges
Flynn
against Sessions?
What
What was the charges against Sessions?
He's done things that called the NAACP anti-American, for instance. And he was denied a position as a judge, federal judge, oddly enough, by the same committee that he will now be chairing. There's irony for you. On the basis that he was making racist comments, but I'm not so sure about that. If somebody has anything on that, that's great. Send it to me and I'll take a look.
Well, there's this 5 points about it. Allegedly said NAACP and ACLU are un-American.
Yeah. That's his opinion. That's fine.
He found he thought the Ku Klux Klan was okay until they found out they smoked pot.
Oh, God.
He's definitely anti-pot. This guy does not like pot. Spoke critically of civil rights legislation. There was one quote where he was saying civil rights is anti-American. Used the N-word after court hearing, and he definitely denies he's racist. But if you're against civil rights for certain people,
yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's a problem.
He said earlier this year, racism is unacceptable. That's fine. But he says some civil rights are un-American. So, I don't know. It's kind of disconcerting.
Mike Flynn is up for National Security Advisor. He's ex-military. So maybe he'll get some actual advice from a military perspective. I mean, let's face it, Trump has no idea what the military is even for. I'm sorry. He's just an idiot. He's so used. He makes things up on the fly. It's going to be a problem for him, especially the style of leadership that's needed. He needs to be conciliatory. I mean, there's been some overtures towards Mitt Romney. Those two have no love for each other, but we'll see what comes of that.
What do you think of this? General Flynn tweeted, "Fear of Muslims is rational."
It depends on what he means. I've thought about this one a lot because I think fear of Islam, or Islamism, certainly.
But not all Muslims.
No, but not all Muslims. No,
of course not.
No.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
He seems to be surrounding himself with people, or Trump is, that seems will like to build these walls and put up this registry they talk about.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they did that.
Yeah. And George Takei spoke out about that.
Exactly.
And,
That's pretty bad. I don't know that how much he's going to be limited. I mean, the president doesn't have that, the kind of power that Trump is expecting. I think it's very limited by the Constitution.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to understand the power of the Constitution when he talks about reversing Roe versus Wade, and when he talks about making.
I'm not sure he actually. He didn't really say that. What he says that he would.
I think he actually. Yes, he did. I forget what I saw. He had a 60 Minutes interview, and he said that about Roe versus Wade. And then he was asked about gay marriage, and he's like, "No, that's a settled issue. Not touching it." And I'm like, "What?" Like you're totally inconsistent.
Wade. Yeah, he is very inconsistent. It's really hard to follow him. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have no idea what his presidency is going to be about. I mean, what's his, aside from the wall, what's his main, what's the main thrust of this presidency? I don't know, but he knows everything about ISIS.
He pandered to racists. He got their votes.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. You see the change now. It was very quick. This change of rhetoric. You don't see.
Well, now that he's finding out he can't just get rid of gay marriage. You can't just revote Roe versus Wade. I mean, constitutional rights are constitutional rights. He doesn't even seem to understand what that means.
And that's the biggest worry is the Supreme Court nominations.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing, it's entirely possible that the Republican Party will not like who he picks. I mean, let's face it, he's not exactly Republican establishment.
Well, he's kind of picking people around him that will, if he picks the kind of those kinds of judges based on the people that he's picking for his cabinet, I think the freaking Republicans are going to be quite happy.
I don't know, because...
And he has promised. He has said in the debate he's going to get more scallious.
He also said he's going to arrest Hillary.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Come on. I've never understood. Like, everybody was all gaga about her emails. I'm like, what? Who cares? Seriously, who cares?
Yeah, and now he's making calls on his private phone. I mean, that's not a secure line.
Yeah, so now he's occupying Trump Tower in New York, and it's a mess for the Secret Service that have to protect him. By the way, guys, you don't have to protect him. Just I didn't say that.
Well, he billed out $6 million for them flying around on his airplane.
Well,
still have to verify that, but
it's disrupting the lives of people who live in that neighborhood. I mean, totally. And it's might be signaling that he's going to spend some of his time there during his presidency.
Yeah. Well,
which is
why
going to
do
be a
you
pain in
live
the
at the White House? There's no good toilets.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then, of course, Melania is saying she's staying there until her son is done his private school for the year. $40,000 a year tuition. And they're trying to say these guys aren't the elites.
Yeah, that's the irony, right? We got to get rid of these elites. Well, he is the elite. Like, jeez.
He's absolutely the elite.
Well, again, it's a rhetoric, because I think you did get a lot of, working class people who feel screwed by the system.
Well, guess what? They're going to get screwed by the system again.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But again,
they were told they were screwed by the system, but they're not. Things were getting better.
No, I think some, look at Flint and them not having any water, drinkable water and that kind of thing, right?
Thanks,
Obama.
Obama.
People did put people in jail for that. That wasn't freaking Hillary or Obama's fault.
Oh, come on. It's always Obama's fault.
Well, it happened under their...
9/11 was Obama's fault.
Somebody's watch. Right?
And they got stuck in jail for what they did. It's not like Obama knows every little thing that's going on in the country everywhere that's illegal.
Did you ever see that? Did you ever see that video?
There have been, when factories move out of a city, it can get devastated. And this is nothing new, right?
And if you're not into paying taxes, well, guess what? You won't have the education to get a different kind of job because you don't have any unless you're going to pay through your nose like $40,000 a year tuition. Sheesh.
Do you ever see
Either
that?
You want taxes?
Do you ever see that video that the White House made? And it'd be Obama doing certain things, like he was putting a cookie into his glass of milk, but it wouldn't fit.
Yeah, thanks, Obama.
Thanks, Obama.
Blame Obama for everything. Blame Hillary for everything.
I love that one. Yeah, Hillary.
And that's another thing that played a big part in making people hate the improvements that were being made. Things aren't going to happen overnight. They had to clean up after Bush, for crying out loud. So, but no, they're going to blame them for everything Bush did now too.
Yeah.
So see how much better things are going to get now without Medicare. I mean,
well. Maybe then media needs to be cracked down on and actually be required to report factual things instead of bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I think the media is a huge problem.
There's a fake news that kids were putting out. Fake news on Facebook to get clicks, clickbait. They figured out you put out these ridiculous headlines about Hillary, people click on them and share them, and they make all kinds of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they persuade, people aren't so discriminating in the media they consume. And I think they're starting to crack down on sort of like satire sites almost.
Yeah,
or,
Facebook
ones that are
is
publishing.
trying to crack down on that. They're going to or they're going to demonetize them anyway.
Yeah, yeah, which is, there's good satire sites like The Onion, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's ones that are ridiculous and inflammatory and,
Yeah. There's the faux news, there's the satire, and then there's Fox News.
Yeah. Yeah, faux news, you mean.
Yeah. Again, there's faux news and then there's faux news. The USA media convinced people of the most insane freaking things about Hillary. Yeah, I'd look them up and they're complete bullshit. They blame her for everything that... They spun the spin. When you looked at the actual history, it was like, well, that's not Hillary's fault because the friggin' Republicans at the time during the Bush era unfunded that. I mean, but it's Hillary's fault? Oh, wow. So it was like, not Hillary. Well, then it's Trump. Sorry, guys. If it's not Hillary, it's Trump. This is what you got. Keep reading and eating that faux news. It'll get you everywhere. It'll get you Republicans forever. Boy.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. We don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
What happens when you're a non-believer and find yourself in the Canadian Bible Belt? If you're like me, you gather some fellow heathens and take to the airwaves. So we invite you to take a left to the valley every Sunday at 1 p.m. on CIVL 101.7 FM. Follow us on leftofthevalley.com. Atheists, skeptics, and humanist radio, no God required.
Faith in God is like a virus, so why would I respect it? The line between good and evil gets blurred once infected. The truth you neglected.
Well, Have we vented enough?
I don't know. I could yell about this for hours, but I'm getting croaky.
I think so. Did we miss anything on our list here?
No, I don't think so. Just if you're a woman, don't go to Dubai.
Oh yeah, I got called out for putting that news on my Facebook. Oh, that Arab news you put on, like as if that's not true. I'm sorry, if you look up Sharia law in all of those Arab countries that I'm talking about, you'll go to jail if you're a woman citizen, not just a visitor if you report rape, because then you're an adulterer or you had extramarital sex. Rape is not against the law there.
Yeah.
Extramarital sex is. Hello, you don't report rape. You'll go to jail. It doesn't matter if you're visiting or not. And if you're going to call me a bad person for reporting that and putting that on my Facebook, really? Are you saying this stuff's not true?
Yeah, this is from the Independent.
It's true.
A British woman who says she was gang raped arrested on extramarital sex charges in Dubai as attackers go free. Oy.
That is so fucked up.
That's a rape culture.
And it's true.
Yeah.
And it's true.
And feminists pay attention to this stuff and start speaking out, because the women that live there and in these countries can't, so you better, stop worrying about freaking mansplaining and manspreading and rise to the goddamn task here, shall we?
Yeah. Be part of the people that say you're not going to visit those countries and contribute to their economy. I mean, that's about all we can do, but it's something, and then speak out about it. I'm not going there because if I get raped, I'm going to get chucked in jail if I complain. And it's true. International pressure and social media and all those kinds of things. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like, keyboard activism, but somebody's got to say this stuff, and
it's the governments that have to do something.
Better bloody well do it.
This is also from the Independent. I mean, this pissed me off. UK charity warns tourists in Dubai not to report rape after woman who was gang raped arrested. Maybe you should actually say, "Don't go, hell no." Stay home. Don't go to Dubai.
Yeah.
Be aware.
But nobody wants to say it.
Was it Germany or France where they were saying, women should just dress more modestly and get used to the fact that
amazing?
There's... No, I'm sorry.
That's not going to help.
Wrong answer. Wrong. I can't remember.
If you get raped wearing a freaking burqa, you're still going to go to jail. It doesn't matter if you wear something head to foot. If you get raped and complain about it, you're going to jail.
And and people wonder why the rape statistics in Arab countries are so low.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're just not reported. Because you end up in prison.
Well, I had this conversation with a Muslim guy, and I can't remember which country it was, but he's like, well, our legal system works. And I'm like, yeah, it works because, nobody wants to...
Doesn't make the laws are any good.
There's a humane way to impose a law versus, death. And these, of course...
The system works.
Yes, it works. Duh.
My toilet works too. but
it's not because it's in America. It's because I maintain it. I don't know. But some people, I tell you.
And if it doesn't work, are you going to start whacking it with a sledgehammer, or are you going to call a plumber? Which do you think is the better approach?
And if you call a plumber and it costs $1 million, you might just smash it and get a new one.
Or whatever, replace it, or, do the reasonable thing, or act like a, crazy person and beat the crap out of your toilet.
Places like Saudi Arabia get reelected to the UN Human Rights Council.
That's so disgusting. I can't even go there. Earlier I could have, but it's, winding up toward the end of the evening, but maybe another night.
You need another glass of wine.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not having too much wine because I'm going to have to go pick up the cat, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we end it there and get ready for 2 weeks from now. We might have a special guest on then, I think, Kris?
Yeah, Tom Leeds, who is a YouTuber, and how else do I describe him? Anyway, we'll get a bio.
He's a white male.
He's a white male, and I think he's got a show that I think he's going to change a name, but it's I believe it's called No White Males or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not very prepared to introduce him properly. I'm sorry, Tom. Forgive me. We'll get you proper intro on the next podcast. But No White Guys, No Old White Guys or something like that is the name of the show on YouTube. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Worth checking. Well, check him out on YouTube. Tom Leeds, Tom. Yeah, Leeds is how you spell his last name, and a lot of people would be familiar with him out there. So yeah.
Cool. So so I guess 2 weeks or so. Talk to you guys then.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Legion of Reason, coming to you from Calgary, Canada. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please consider reviewing us on iTunes. Music was provided by Dean Morrison and Graham Hill and used with permission.